Hey everyone, Tristan back with another video, and in this video let's talk about why everyone and their brother seems to be using this microphone. This is the Shure SM7B microphone, and I'm sure you've seen this microphone before if you watch YouTube. It seems like the majority of YouTube people or even streamers on Twitch or even TikTok, use this microphone. It's a very, very popular microphone for voiceovers and for vocals. So let's talk about that in this video. First of all, you should know that all the audio that you're listening to in this video is being recorded with this microphone, and I'm not adjusting anything. I'm not using any EQ or compression or anything like that. I will just adjust for levels. That's it. And just for your own knowledge, the XLR cable I'm using is a Mogami 2459 cable, and that's going into my USB audio interface, which currently is the Universal Audio Volt 276. And on that Volt 276 USB interface, I am not using any outboard hardware processing at all. I don't have the vintage mode on, and I don't have the compressor on or anything like that. So the audio is not really being sweetened in any way. And then on the back of the microphone, I do have the presence switch on. So the back of the microphone has little switches that you can actually adjust the sound a little bit. The first one is a bass roll-off switch. The second one is a flat. So if it's set to flat, it's not going to change the sound at all. And then the presence mode actually gives a little bit of a treble boost. And I think my voice sounds a little bit better with that on. So I do have that on the microphone. And again, that's a switch that's built right into the microphone. So why is this microphone so darn popular? I think the main reason is that it is a very forgiving microphone. So people who are not necessarily pros can just set it up, use it, and they don't have to worry about it. What I mean by forgiving is that it makes pretty much any voice sound pretty good without having to do a lot of outboard work like EQing and compression and limiting and things like that. You just throw it on and you talk into it and it sounds really good. It's also very forgiving of plosives and sibilants as well. So you don't have to worry about that. A lot of microphones, when you use like the P sounds, you can kind of overload the microphone circuit and it just kind of sounds really ugly and bad in your speakers or your headphones. That's not the case with this microphone. This microphone is designed automatically to kind of reduce those, and also sibilants too, so where you have those S sounds. So you don't have to worry a ton about S's when you're talking, sounding like really sibilant and really like screechy and things like that. The design of this mic is kind of interesting because even when you talk really up close to the microphone here, the actual capsule is down here. So it's built into the design. Underneath this foam windscreen is a cage, and the microphone actually is not right up here, it's down here. So it's got a built-in kind of protection. You're not talking right up next to the capsule. So that's kind of built into the form factor of this microphone. Now, the other thing, as you notice, as I get closer to the microphone, I'm only talking about an inch away from it right now. My voice probably gets a little bit bassier and more boomy, and that's what is called the proximity effect. That can be looked at as a positive or a negative, but this microphone has a really good, nice sounding proximity effect, so I think it's actually a positive with this microphone. And what the proximity effect is that the frequency response actually gets a little bit bassier as you get closer to the microphone. So a lot of people who are announcers or like narrators or voiceover artists and stuff like that use this microphone and they talk really up close to it like this. And as you can tell, my voice probably sounds a little bit more radio-like, as I'm talking only like an inch away from the microphone right now. I kind of probably sound more like an announcer, and I can go like, "Stay tuned next for traffic after this break," and things like that, and get that kind of a radio announcer sound that a lot of people like. So it has a really kind of a sweet proximity effect in that respect. Now, one negative to that on the flip side is that as you get further away from the microphone, your voice starts getting less bassy and not quite sounding as sweet. And you can't use this microphone, I would say, further back than about 6 inches from your mouth. So that's one negative about this microphone. It really is just for vocals. And I would say it really functions best within about 6 inches from the microphone. Any further than that, and you're not going to want to use it. It just won't work very well in terms of picking up your voice. But like the Electro Voice RE20, which is, I think, the nearest competitor to this mic, which I have reviewed up here, so check that out. I have reviewed that in the past. Like that microphone, this microphone has a lot of history behind it and has been used by a lot of musicians, like Michael Jackson and James Hetfield of Metallica have used this microphone for their vocals. So this microphone really is a pretty popular vocal microphone, like the Electro Voice RE20 is as well. And also it has a pretty similar sound signature to the Electro Voice RE20 as well. However, the SM7B is even more impervious to plosives and stuff like that. So it's better in that respect because it's just more forgiving. You can't get it to be plosive or sibilant quite as easily as the Electro Voice RE20. Now, I'm not going to go into all the technical specs about this microphone because there's tons of other reviewers who have done that. And you can also look online in terms of the impedance of the microphone and the frequency response and all that. But I will say that it does have a bit of a very high frequency roll off. So like unlike the Electro Voice RE20, the highs aren't quite as present or noticeable with this microphone. So depending on your voice, you might consider that good or bad. But in general, the highs aren't quite as accentuated with this microphone, so it does give you a bit of a warmer, darker sound signature, although that really will depend on whether or not you EQ the microphone like in post. And also, believe it or not, the XLR cable can make a difference as well. For instance, like the Mogami XLR cables do tend to sound a little bit better in terms of giving you more highs, whereas if you use like a cheaper cable or maybe a generic cable, then this microphone tends to sound much more dark and muddy sounding. So you might notice that a lot of creators using this microphone sound different when they're using it. Some of them, their voice might sound very clear and kind of crisp, but yet still with that warm sound signature. But yet some might sound really muddy and almost like where you can't even articulate their voice very well. So the XLR cable being used as well as the preamp being used make a big difference as well. And when I say preamp, this microphone requires a lot of power and a good preamp, a good clean preamp. This microphone is very hard to drive. If you're using a good preamp, however, you don't need any kind of inline device like a cloud lifter or a Triton Audio FET head or anything like that you've heard about. A lot of people put those little amplifiers inline in the XLR. If you have a good preamp, you don't need that, and I'm not using one here. My gain is almost all the way up, but I'm getting a perfectly good level here at about negative 18 dB without any kind of external preamp or anything like that, just going right into the USB audio interface. So it's kind of a myth that you need something in line in the XLR with this microphone if you have a pretty good preamp. If you have a really, really crappy preamp, then maybe you would. But in general, you don't need something like that at all. And you can even feel free to turn the gain all the way up. It's not, if you have a good modern day preamp and everything like that, it's not going to make that big of a deal or anything like that. Now let's talk about some negatives about this microphone. Well, so first of all, as I just mentioned, one of the negatives is that it's quite hard to drive. And then another negative is it's quite heavy. I think it weighs like almost 2 pounds or something like that. So it's quite a heavy mic. Some cheaper boom arms and stuff like that may not even actually be able to support the mic very well. And then another negative could be the design of it. The mounting hardware on it is a little bit strange. It does kind of come with this sort of shock mount right here, but the way it mounts is a little bit odd. You've got the mount and then you've got the XLR cable separate. So it can be a little bit finicky, and on certain boom arms, you may have to get an extension actually for it to bring the sort of mounting system a little bit further away from the boom arm so that you have more flexibility in placing the microphone and also the XLR cable. So I'll post a link to that in the description field, as well as I'll post a link to this microphone where you can get it, for the best price as well. All in all, I do think this Shure SM7B is a really good microphone because of the fact that I like that it's not real plosive, and also it's not real sibilant. It's less sibilant and less prone to plosives than the Electro Voice RE20. Although out of the box, I prefer the sound of the Electro Voice RE20. I think with some EQing, some light EQing, I think this microphone can sound really, really great. And is, again, just a classic microphone. The first one was just called the SM7, and now the current model is the SM7B. Sound signature of the different versions hasn't really changed much at all. I think the only thing that they added with the SM7B versus the original SM7 is what they call a humbucking coil inside. And what the humbucking coil does is it helps it reject hums and interference noises and things like that a bit better. So all in all, I'm a bit more impressed with the Shure SM7B than I thought I would be before I ever had it. I kind of like the look of it. It's kind of got a cool industrial look to it that's kind of nondescript, which is kind of what you want if you're just on camera like this. It kind of blends in pretty well. You see it all over the place, so people are kind of used to seeing it. The design is a little bit strange because the XLR jack doesn't go right into the housing of the microphone. You've got this cord here that comes kind of like out of the bottom of the microphone and then into your XLR. It's got a little bit of a strange design, but I do like the built-in shock mount. As I tap the microphone arm here, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it seems relatively good in terms of vibration and shock resistance. Let me tap the actual mic as well. I'm sure you hear that, but it's not drastic. And so, for people who are using this on air, like on the radio or for podcasts, you can actually move this around and you're not going to hear a lot of clicks and pops as you do so. It's got this built-in kind of like shock mount system here, which I think is, pretty nice. It's just built into the microphone. It just comes with it, which I think is good. And again, if you want to use this microphone real close up like this, you can get a great announcer type sound using the microphone very close up like this as well. The Electro Voice RE20 also does this as well, but not to as great an extent as this microphone. The variable D technology on the Electro Voice RE20 is such that the frequency response doesn't really change as you get really close to the microphone or pull further back from the microphone. Whereas this microphone, the Shure SM7B, the frequency response really does change as you get close to the microphone, as I am doing right here. You can probably tell that it just sounds a lot more announcer-like and a lot more radio-like as I get real close to the microphone. So anyway, a lot of people really like that, and it is kind of cool that you're able to do that. So yeah, all in all, I do really like this microphone. I think it's quite forgiving, and voices really do sound good on it, even without any EQ, just out of the box. I think it sounds really great, and that's how you're hearing it now. So thanks for watching my look of the Shure SM7B microphone. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments field. I'd love to hear your comments. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.